Current car engines are trying to be as light and environmentally friendly as possible, but able to work under heavy load and be powerful enough, which leads to rapid aging or evaporation of engine oil. Some power units can eat up a lot of oil, and if the problem is not noticed in time, then oil starvation sets in, after which the owner will face the most unpleasant consequences, up to replacing the motor. The trouble is that when buying a used car, it is very difficult to know if the engine takes oil, except for driving a few hundred kilometers. Of course, no seller will agree to this. There is also an endoscope, but even he will not be able to accurately answer the question of the maslozhora. The only way out is to find out what kind of engine is in front of you and what kind of reputation it has. So let's take a look at the most oil-burning motors on the market. A striking example of oil engines are 1.8 and 2.0 TSI. So, the reasons for their voracity is the imperfect design of the piston group. In particular, insufficient sealing due to the non-optimal position of the oil scraper rings. Because of this, oil is released during the exhaust cycle. This is especially true for their second generation, produced in 2008. 2010, however, the third generation had some problems with this. Thin piston rings in the EA888 series engines were supposed to reduce running resistance and fuel consumption. The rings were subject to wear, as a result of which oil consumption exceeded 1 liter per 1,000 kilometers. Losses are also caused by the oil separator, which lets too much oil vapor into the intake manifold. A problem with crankcase ventilation may be signaled by a lean air-fuel mixture message and air whistling from the vicinity of the crankcase ventilation valve for a few seconds after the engine is turned off. Turbo engines 1.8 2.0 TSI were finalized in 2011. However, the third generation EA888 also has its own problem areas. In particular, there is a two-stage oil supply control system, due to which the oil receiver mesh often clogs, and the pump and its drive can malfunction. For effective repair of old units, it is necessary to install upgraded pistons together with connecting rods or prepare already used pistons for mounting additional rings. If you plan to increase power, then you should install reinforced pistons offered by a tuning studio. Power units were installed on almost all models of the VAG concern. In general, VAG has distinguished itself with many oil-guzzling motors in recent years, so 1.4 TSI for 122 horsepower, less prone to this misfortune, although there are cases, but the 1.4 TSI for 160 horsepower with a turbine and compressor is not far from its older counterparts. They suffer from maslozhora and FSI with a volume of 2.4 liters, 3.2 liters, and 4.2 liters. For some, this will come as a surprise, but the Toyota 1.8 VVTi is also prone to oil consumption. Poorly designed piston rings in the 1.8 VVTi contribute to oil consumption at rates in excess of 1,000 kilometers. The problem was so big that in some cars the engines were replaced under warranty. If the driver did not have the habit of regularly monitoring the oil level, then the matter could come to the engine jamming. The issue of excessive oil consumption was removed from the agenda in 2005. Toyota owners also point to high oil consumption in 1.4 and 1.6 liter engines. Piston rings are also to blame for this, as a rule. Such motors can be found on Toyota Avensis and Corolla. Subaru engines are also exposed to oil, in particular the 3.6R, which was installed on the Subaru Outback. This is the most powerful engine for this machine and it eats up a lot of oil. 1 liter per 5,000 km of run is allowed. Subaru also has two more units that eat oil. These are the EJ25 with a volume of 2.5 liters and the EJ20 with a volume of 2.0 liters. Design features give a large amount of oil for waste. Increased oil consumption has been observed in various Opel gasoline engines. The most popular were engines with a volume of 1.6 and 1.8 liters, where these symptoms were observed, both in units with an 8-valve and a 16-valve block head. The repair does not bring an impressive improvement, since even the manufacturer recognizes oil consumption at the level of 0.7 L 1,000 kilometers as the norm. Despite this, the engines are quite tenacious and easily tolerate the installation of HBO. Nissan 1.516V 1.816V oil enters the combustion chambers through insufficiently strong piston rings. Replacement will help, but at the current cost of cars, owners prefer to use a thicker oil instead of investing in repairs. Buying and installing a used motor is a lottery. The lubrication system uses only 2.7 liters of oil, so even the loss of 1 liter can seriously reduce the life of the engine. Engine problems and corrosion have eliminated quite a few Elmers. In the case of the 1.6 VTEC engine and other Honda units, oil consumption is not a malfunction, but a feature resulting from the settings. The motor requires high RPM where the best performance is provided. If the driver often uses high speeds, then he should not forget to check the condition of the oil. HRVs tend to be driven more quietly than Civics, so the crossover's engine consumes less oil. Ford did not bypass this list. The 1.6 Zetec SE engine, developed in collaboration with Yamaha, was praised for its low fuel consumption and good dynamics. Oil consumption in excess of 0.5 L 1,000 kilometers is detected at a mileage far beyond 200,000 kilometers. Lubricant consumption increases if the driver often forces the engine to run at high speeds. In larger 1.8 2.0 Zetec E, oil also leaks, but more often due to leaks through seals and gaskets. Fiat 1.416V 1.816V. The problem of excessive oil consumption occurs at different mileage and has varying degrees of severity. In some cars, the appetite is at the level of 0.5 L 1,000 kilometers, while in others it exceeds the threshold of 1 liter. Fiat owners note that even an engine overhaul, not to mention the replacement of piston rings and valve seals, can only reduce, but not stop oil consumption. And yet, sometimes the source of lubricant loss is numerous leaks. Citroën and Peugeot owners usually complain about the 1.816V engine, but significant levels of oil consumption are also seen in the 1.616V, 2.016V, and 1.6 THP. If it is not the gaskets that are leaking oil, then valve seals and piston rings are usually to blame. The onboard computers of many PSA vehicles have a low oil warning function. The oil is loved by various BMW engines, including the N52 and M54. However, the biggest disappointment was the N63 S63, which is a 4.4-liter twin supercharged V8. After 100,000 kilometers, it starts to consume 1 liter per 1,000 kilometers. In engines produced since 2013, improvements have been made that have limited oil appetite. But the problem has not been finally resolved. In the US, this defect forced BMW owners to go to court. Separately, it is worth mentioning the wrong oil. In particular, its viscosity. For each engine, the manufacturer in the technical documentation indicates what it should be. And if you pour more liquid oil into the crankcase, then this can lead to its waste. This is explained simply as a lot of oil remains on the walls of the cylinders, where it simply burns out along with the fuel and exits with the exhaust gases. Therefore, the engine must be filled with oil with the recommended viscosity. Well, it will be very interesting to know if you agree with this list, and that's all for me. Thank you very much for your attention. I will be very grateful if you subscribe to the channel. See you soon.